Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. Appreciate you checking out the podcast. Ryen was only on the show for an hour, so it's going to be a lot of me in this podcast. Actually, it's a lot of great college basketball coaches as well. Bill Self from Kansas, Jay Wright from Villanova, Tony Bennett from Virginia. And Ryen and I chop up what he's doing in Los Angeles for the Grantland show as they talk NBA trades. McShay's mock draft 2.0, whether Gronk could do anything that anybody would question, and if Steph is a runaway winner for MVP, or does Harden have any shot at all? All that part of a fun podcast, which starts now.
SVP and Russillo.
But Ryen, you are out in Los Angeles, where I understand that you are suffering through 80 degrees and sunshine.
Yeah. That's exactly what's going down. I didn't really realize the weather patterns here. You explained them to me, so I appreciated it. And you guys are getting hit with another snowstorm, right?
Allegedly. But, at this point, what difference does it make? It's deck chairs off the Titanic. There's nowhere to put the snow. Otis the dog just looks at me when I open the door and is like, what do you want from me? I don't know. We'll try to figure it out. You got out to California last night in time to see the Steph Curry show.
I was on the plane.
Oh, so
it was perfect. It was awesome.
So you watched it on the plane?
Yeah, the whole game.
Oh, wait, what kind of technology are you working with? Private?
No, not private aviation. Oh. Delta had this nice little tab set up, so it was nice.
Last night, Curry, well, let's start with what was it, 24-2? Is that the score?
Yeah, 20. I went back and looked at the game log. I think they were down 24 at one point, but it's 24-4. And I'm like, you know what? They got this. I swear that's what I said.
What made you think that?
Because I've watched them all year.
Yeah. They were down double digits against Sacramento the night before, and by the end of the half, they go on this run. We use the term avalanche with Oregon this year in football. Golden State avalanches you like nobody else. And in fact, it's Steve Kerr said after the game, it's actually when Curry is at his best.
Sometimes Steph plays his best when we're down big, and he just senses that he has to put the Superman cape on, and he's so good at it. He loves the freedom of being down and saying, all right, I'm going to let it fly, and I'm going to bring us back, and that's what he did.
There's that great shot of Kerr after Curry hit one particular three where Kerr just has this little wry smile, and he shakes his head subtly. And let's not forget, Ryen, that Kerr wasn't a good shooter. He was an exceptional shooter. So when you see a guy who is an exceptional shooter watching this guy do things and just shaking his head, I think it frames just the level of genius, and that's the word that I would use to describe how he plays, just the level of genius of Curry at the moment. It feels at this point that we're talking about a runaway MVP winner. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think there's a little bit of debate to it, but I would put him down number one at this point. And LeBron's always going to be compared not to everybody else in the league, but kind of to LeBron's previous seasons. Durant doesn't have a shot at it because of the time that he's missed. I think Harden is part of this as well. And I don't really know who else. Atlanta doesn't really have that guy. Maybe LeBron makes a late push, but still I think that he's going to get penalized for not being as good this year and looking like a different player in the first half. But I always think about sports. Like, I've had some of the best times ever watching games just watching hockey playoffs, okay? Everybody knows that hockey playoffs may be as good a product as we have in sports, okay? I'll even admit there's been some soccer matches where you go, this is actually pretty intense and pretty cool. If you don't like the NBA, you'd still like the Golden State Warriors, and you'd still like Steph Curry. He's that kind of player. And he's gone from, can he be a point guard in the league? Is he really big enough? Is he athletic enough? To all the questions to now, is he the best point guard? Is he a top five? To he is, and proving again last night, a dude. Dilfer likes to call quarterbacks dudes, the guys that kind of get it in the moment, that it factor that so many people say can't be quantified. Well, you can when you watch Curry. He is truly one of those few players in the league. When it's getting nasty, he can bail you out of it. And last night was unbelievable for 26 points in the third quarter.
And last night wasn't just last night. It was the second game in as many nights, and Curry was as proud of that as anything else after the fact as he visited with Heather Cox.
As long as we got defensive stops and kept ourselves in the game, that we have enough talent on this team to turn the tide. So for us to come back off a back-to-back against a team that we're down 22 says a lot about who we are and what our mission is this year.
Yeah, I understand Sacramento beating them. You're not going to get bonus points, but a Dallas team is 33-18 is very capable, and they just at times look helpless to do anything to stop Curry. And you're right that he's, whether you like the league or not, he's impossible not to enjoy. And I think that's as much as anything when you talk about the MVP discussion. Who doesn't like Curry? You know what I mean? It's like cake. You like cake? Nope. Hate it. Who would say that? Curry's impossible to dislike. Whereas Harden, and we talked about this a bit yesterday, perception, how does the perception hurt the way you get voted on, as an example, for the Hall of Fame? You brought that up, which I thought was really interesting. Do you think the way Harden is viewed as a collector, a get to the line 15 times a night, get bailed out on calls a lot, do you think that impacts people not being willing or able to see what he's doing this year, which I think is taking the next step in becoming one of the best players in the league at the moment?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I know I'm guilty of it sometimes, and I make myself stop because it's completely discrediting the fact that he's a terrific player, and he gets to the line more than anybody else in the league, 9 attempts per game, and I hate the calls that he gets, but that's an art. If people are going to keep calling it, then he's going to keep using it to his advantage, and he does that. But he's also a great shooter. He is a terrific playmaker. They used to run the offense through him when he was with the guys in Oklahoma City and Westbrook and Durant, like late-game situations. He is such a good passer that I don't think that gets talked about enough. I mean, this season his assist numbers are insane too. But whether it's the defensive videos on YouTube, which is on him, like it showed him for a really long time of his career that he didn't care. He's improved on it a little bit this year. But without Howard here for a month with a knee issue, for them to keep pace as, say, a top 4 seed, if that's even possible in the stacked-up West, like he deserves a lot of consideration for this. I just think that he's a guy that if you're on the other side and he's playing against your team and you see the calls he gets, you end up hating him. And the thing is, too, that Portland series last year, he didn't get a lot of those calls in the playoffs.
Yep.
And that was like, whoa, wait a minute. He's not getting these calls, then that changes who the Rockets are.
It's a control pitcher that doesn't get the corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
If you're not gonna, if I throw 88, 89, and I'm Glavin or Maddox, and I'm not getting that call in the corner, then that means I got to change what I'm doing, and I won't be as effective. And Harden, and you could see it. You could see in that series that he'd look to the official like stricken. You know, he looked hurt, wounded that he wasn't getting that call because it's such a big part of his game. But where I'm with you here is that if and I don't love it, but if you don't watch that guy's creativity and ability to get his where he wants his, and I'm talking his offense, then that's on you. And Houston right now they're as close to second, 3 games behind Memphis, as they are to 7th, 3 games ahead of San Antonio. And during this stretch, as you point out, without Howard, and it's a rugged stretch, if they're able to stay in that comfortable top 4 place with Harden leading the way, then I think he should be discussed. But I think he's got no shot because Curry's just so popular. Everyone likes Curry, and he's so likable as a kid. He's a young man, and as a player, that I don't think Harden, though his play would warrant it, I think he's got zero chance to be. He'll get votes, but it's not a real candidacy.
Couple of things. One, never feel bad calling Curry a kid because he still looks like he's 15 years old out there doing this to NBA guys.
That is true. 2,
I completely agree with you. Everything you said is on point. 3. And I'm going long here on this list. Going long with Chris Long.
That's happening, by the way.
Monte Eunice is not a stiff for the Rockets, and he's going to fill in for Howard. So he's not the drop off I think a lot of people would expect after Howard, because Howard, he's been so good again defensively this year. But we should never say in that comfortable spot in the Western Conference seeding, because there is no comfort anywhere. And I get asked this all the time by, people who want to talk NBA, if I do a radio hit, and they'll say, hey, is so-and-so, is this team built to go deep in the playoffs? I don't care. If the Warriors lose to the Thunder in the first round, and the Thunder are looking good with the last 2 weeks,
right,
are you going to crush them?
No.
Are you going to kill Memphis if they lose to San Antonio in the 2-7? If anybody loses to anybody in the Western Conference, I don't know that I'm going to criticize any of these teams because we've never seen anything like this 1 through 8.
Do you want to take a shot at the Sam Adams? I know you don't have the read in front of you, but if I just lay out a couple of times, you just want to say stuff during the read, I just want to know where I am as we get ready. I might you can't see me, but I can see you. I'm going to be pointing metaphorically. You want to try it, or you just let me handle it?
I think we're just going to let you handle this.
That's so disappointing. I understand.
Look, I could yell stuff. But
then you do whatever you want to do. Just yell "Ghost Dad." It's worked well for 5 years.
SVP and Russillo.
Bill, I remember a few years back you told me about a practice you had, and Coach Brown came out and saw you guys and thought you stunk. But by the end of the year, you were Final Four team, if I've got this about right. When do you're 19-3 and it's February. When do you typically know what you've got? By now?
I think so. I've always thought that you want to be playing your best ball in March. I know that, but I've always thought the reality of it is if conference play is important and you want to kind of be peaking in February through March, and our teams historically have done a decent job with that. And this year, I'm not saying we're peaking by any stretch, but because I still think there's a lot of room for growth. But I do think we're playing a little bit better ball, and I think I kind of know what to expect now. Whereas before, it was a box of chocolates every single game. I had no idea, and now I think guys are settling in.
You and I traded some messages after an early season game in November against Kentucky, and I mean, it's rare that you guys have been on the end of something like that. Now that we're many months removed, and now that you guys are playing so well, is there value in a butt kicking like that, where everybody can kind of take a look around the room and realize, all right, we need to be a whole lot better than this?
I think there can be value in not playing well and getting your butt kicked. I'm not sure there's much value in getting it kicked like we did. I think we could have learned a valuable lesson losing by 10 instead
I
of 32.
I understand.
But the other thing is we weren't ready for that game. That was too early. We were too young. And Kentucky was so much better, and even though they're young too, they're experienced young, and they'd had their team in the summer and go to I think it was the Bahamas
yeah.
against it. So they had a little bit of an advantage. I'm not saying great, not excused advantage, but they had a little bit of advantage over teams early in the season because they'd been together longer because of the extra practices in those games. But things have a way of kind of balancing out, and I think we've gotten better. But here's the scary thing is I think they've gotten better too. They're obviously a terrific basketball team, and they get everyone's best shot every night, and they've been able to hold everybody off.
Bill Self is our guest from Kansas. They stand at 8-1 in the league, 19-3, and you hit the road for 3 of 4. And this league, I think the best example of your league this year is that Texas was ranked 6th in the country at one point, and now they stand 8th in your league. It's always a rugged league, but this has to be the most depth top to bottom that I can ever remember. Same for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think the depth is ridiculous, without question. You're looking at. I mean, you could legitimately have 8 teams make the tournament, and I bet you we do get 7 at least. And it's a deep league. I don't think it's quite as top heavy as maybe some of the great teams we've had in the past. I mean, you stop to think about it. You got Beasley, you got Griffin, you got Durant, you got LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, you've had some hard-rocking guys, and then we've had our fair share of really good players. I mean, come through here. Whether it be Wiggins, Embiid, or whoever. We don't have players like that in our league right now, but we got really good players, and we got more good teams. We just may not have, the great teams that that'll be a top 5 team in the country from start to finish. But we got a lot of really good teams.
You and I have known each other a long time. I'm not going to try to be clever and trick you into answering a question about this streak of consecutive titles. You've won 10 straight. This would be 11. I mean, do you allow yourself just sitting around mulling it over, satisfaction about what it's been, and is it a goal that matters to you to continue adding to it?
It matters. It matters to me a lot. It matters to our players. Every since I was at Oral Roberts, and we didn't have a league, so we were independent when we took over the job there, and our first year back Division I, and so we actually played 4 years being an independent, not being in a league, and when we got into the league, I made up a point every day in practice. We say, Big 12 champs or Big 10 champs or Mountain West champ, whatever it was. Every day at the end of practice, we conclude practice by that. I want it to be important in their minds that you obviously, when you stop and think about being really good, you want to be really good against the people you compete against on a regular basis, and that of course would be your league first and foremost. So it is important. Of course, it's not as important as postseason, and I know that, but certainly. I think to anybody that really follows ball, I think being the best in your respective league, I think is pretty important.
A couple other things here for Bill Self from Kansas. Just your reaction to the Syracuse story with Boeheim, who's a giant in the game, and the idea of self-imposing sanctions in a year where it doesn't look like they're going to make the tournament anyway. I'm just curious if you have any reaction to that at all.
I haven't, Scott. I haven't read enough to really know what's going on, and I don't know if anybody knows a lot because I think it's still kind of hush-hush on what's going on. But there's obviously something there, or that wouldn't have happened. But I don't know details, but I do know I believe in that guy, and I think he's terrific, and certainly there can be slip-ups in any business at any particular time. But to be up front and handle it the way they did, I'm sure they think is best, and I'm sure it will be best for the program.
All right, now I just let people in on a little secret here. Before you and I started talking today, you were chomping at the bit to talk Super Bowl, and I found this really interesting. As a guy who's at the peak of his profession as a coach, you were just trying to figure out what went on endgame there. What's it like for you to analyze another sport? Because you find yourself on our side of it, where we're just the fans, just scratching our heads about things.
Well, I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating in sport how a lucky bounce or a friendly call, which sometimes could be a missed call, could be the difference in how we view coaches, how we view players, how we view winners and not winners and all that stuff. And I think the game the other day had a lot of everything to it, and certainly the drama, the last minute with the catch, and then with time management and play management and guys stepping up and making plays. I thought it was about the best I've ever seen and best drama I've ever seen. But it does fascinate me because we could certainly be, everybody's talking about Pete Carroll and stuff, but if they'd have scored on second down and didn't leave Brady any time, we may be talking about Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
So it's just an inexact science, and sometimes you go by feel and sometimes by hunch, and obviously the Patriots had the right hunch.
Didn't they? And that's as big a stage as there is. But I just think it's cool to know that somebody that's, does what you do as well as you do, or just find their decisions, the ones they made and the ones they didn't made, as interesting as we do. Bill, always fun to catch up. Continued success out at KU. We'll talk to you, I'm sure, around the tournament.
Okay. Take care, Scott.
SVP and Russillo.
Todd McShay's got his mock draft 2.0 out. Of note, Jameis remains number 1. Marcus Mariota no longer number 2. He's fallen to number 6 at the New York Jets. He was on a little earlier, McShay was, to explain why Mariota's falling.
It's not that he does anything wrong. It's just that he doesn't make a whole lot of NFL-type throws in terms of inside the pocket with anticipation down the field. And the ones that you go through, he's not nearly as accurate, or, his efficiency is not as high as you'd like to see, as you have to see when you're starting to evaluate quarterbacks and projecting to the next level.
What's your reaction to that, Ryan?
You got to understand, I sat in a hotel room with him and watched the coach's film of these two guys, and he took me through the whole thing. And that was before the Rose Bowl. It was before the national championship game, and I was convinced of it. I'm like, okay, I see what you see now here. But I just think it's been kind of ridiculous, all the Mariota criticism. I think where it just seemed to be out of control leading up to the national championship game, and then after the fact, it was like, yeah, see, this guy doesn't have the goods, when you knew he was still going to go top 10 because there's really no other options out there for anyone. But this is fairly predictable. We knew Winston was the better prospect. If he had a run at the end of the year where he didn't get in trouble for anything, that everybody was going to fall in love with him again, and that's why I just kind of laughed at the idea that he could potentially not be a first-rounder because of the NFL's awareness of worrying about their players and how they looked.
Yeah, the momentum was clear at the end of the season. And I don't think this is – because people will frame it as, oh, we love to build you up and then we want to tear you down. And Mariota is such a likable young man that I don't think people want to tear him down. I think that people just took a closer look with a magnifying glass and asked, okay, you're a really good college quarterback. Are you going to be a good professional quarterback? And so the shrugs have gotten magnified, and that chatter has gotten louder moving ahead. If you're Mariota, Ryan, 6 to the Jets. Assess.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I start telling people I hate the Jets, I hate the Mets, I hate the Rangers. I'm glad the Islanders are moving to Brooklyn.
My favorite pizza is Sbarro. I think Sbarro pizza is great. Right. You got any Sbarros in New York? Because I can't wait to come eat pizza.
Start tweeting out pictures of me in Red Sox gear. Like I want nothing to do with the Jets. I know they have a new regime. I know they have a new head coach. I think it's a problem with ownership there. I don't think that whole team can help themselves. Maybe it's completely different now, but I want nothing to do with them. And by the way, McShay flipped Winston and Mariota. In his first draft, he had Mariota going 1 to the Bucs, Winston 2 to the Titans.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that correction. Now he's got Winston 1. He's got Mariota down to 6, so he's fallen from 1 to 6. Do you have the draft in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay, the printout of it, because I think what jumps off the page to me is just how many wide receivers, and it's obviously a deep class, but starting with Amari Cooper at 4, and then going through Kevin White, Devontae Parker out of West Virginia and Louisville, then you go to Devin Smith, and then I'll stop at Dorial Green-Beckham. That's an 18th to the to the Chiefs. Speaking of no thanks, I don't know. They don't throw it to the wide receivers much, but this is a young man who we just finished up signing day. I remember when Dorial Green-Beckham decided to go to Missouri. It was seen as this gigantic coup, and he played there for several years. His sophomore year, he did have 12 touchdowns, but then was dismissed. Oklahoma thought that they might have him, and then he went to Oklahoma, but he never got on the field. And his physical gifts are such that they're 6'6", 230, basically, 225, and he can run some. He's going to have to convince teams not to take him almost when he goes to talk to them. But he's got flags. It surprised me to see him that high at 18. Does it surprise you?
Yeah, it does because, again, we're talking about how deep this wide receiver class is, and this is following a season where the first-rounders, and we're talking about maybe one of the best rookie classes the NFL has ever seen when it comes to production from that position. And now we're going to back it up with a ton of other guys. And when you go through it, Amari Cooper, you go, well, did you watch him? Yeah, I like him. Did you watch Kevin White at West Virginia?
Beast.
How could you watch him and not like him? Funchess at Michigan, who was kind of a tight end but listed a wide receiver, is a monster matchup problem. So to know that Dorial Beckham-Green, with all of the physical skills and all the problems that he's had, I guess I always think any team can talk themselves into taking somebody if they like the talent enough. You just have other options this year.
Follow at SVP and Russillo for special tweets for the 1-800-Flowers Wow Her sweepstakes weekly through February the 13th. Retweet for a chance to win a $50 1-800-Flowers.com gift card. You must retweet the same day to be up for that. Speaking of a receiver with unbelievable physical attributes, he's a tight end. His name is Gronk, and he has license at this point, Ryan, to do anything. If he was nude with bootleg fireworks in the back of a duck boat yesterday and he was shooting them at kids, no one would have cared. They'd say, hey, man, bottle rockets, who doesn't like bottle rockets? Gronk's just out there chopping it up. He can do anything. Shots, beers, hang off of the boats. He's like a puppy. If the puppy takes a dump in the kitchen, you still want to pet the puppy and say, look how cute the puppy is. It's amazing to me that he exists in a world where there is no out of bounds.
Is it unfair to other people?
Kind of. Because he's good at what he does, and I don't know how to put this delicately. Everybody just says it the same way. The guy's never had a bad day in his life. So if it was someone else, would anyone? When they threw him the fireball, it was the happiest he was in his entire life. That moment when he got the fireball shot and then chugged it, that's Christmas. And here's the thing: I celebrate Rob the same as everybody else does. Go for yours. It's just I don't know who else could do it.
Yeah, I know Dan and Levitar and Stugotz and Bomani were talking about this yesterday, and it became a race discussion. And I'm in the car and I'm going, are they right? You know what I mean? Is it only because, like, if it was a black guy doing this, would he get crushed? And I know some of the audience immediately is going to go, absolutely, you guys are kidding yourselves. You think it would be any different?
If Vince Wilfork did it, no one would crush him. Everyone loves Vince Wilfork, so I'd say no.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this story out from all angles and why it's like this. You're right that he's good. We talked about it yesterday. When you're good, Manziel stunk in the only 2 games he played, which is completely unfair because he wasn't good. Everybody was going to crush him. If you win and you are good and you party, you're Joe Namath too. Okay.
Yep.
If you aren't, then it's nobody likes you. But I do think that the thing that's benefited Gronk the most is he's never pretended to be anybody else from day one. This is who he's always been, and he's the best tight end in the league. The scouts that went through the NFL guys when we were doing the list, he was the most talented player by their rankings of anyone that played in the Super Bowl. But he's always been this guy, and he plays a position of tight end where you're not expecting him to be a leader. If he was a quarterback and doing this, I think he'd get crushed. But he doesn't fake. He doesn't do those E60 pieces where he's trying to tell you about, like, the Gronk that you don't know. No, we all know who he is.
Yeah.
And we've accepted it.
I don't read books. I just smash fireball. Then nobody can check me. I score. Then I go to clubs. Then people rip my pants, and I dance and celebrate me. And we do. And so does his quarterback, Tom Brady.
He's got a great personality. He's really been pretty consistent since he got to our team. And I remember seeing him on draft day with he and his family jumping on the stage and that's still the way he is. He plays with a lot of fun, a lot of enthusiasm. It brings a lot of enjoyment for us when we see him, excited and spiking the ball and just being him. So I always joke, I don't think he's ever had a bad day in his life. He always seems to have a great time.
And I think he might have had the greatest day of his life yesterday in that parade. He was living, and he lives like very few can, I think.
SVP and Russillo.
Jay Wright from Villanova joins us now. And Jay, good to visit with you, man. I'll give you the choice. Do you want to talk hoops and serious stuff first, or the fun stuff? Because we got fun and we got hoops. Your choice.
Hey, man, good talking to you, Scott. But I've actually been following the college football signing day myself. That stuff is crazy.
Nuts,
That's
isn't it?
gotten so big, it's unbelievable. I'm watching Penn State. They've got the Penn State had a pep rally for their signing day.
Yep.
It's incredible.
No, that's the way it goes. But see, what you guys have in hoops that they need in football is they need an early signing because they don't have one. So it's complete chaos at the end.
I'll tell you what else we have in hoops, and I don't know enough about football recruiting, but however it works in basketball, if a guy gives a verbal commitment in basketball, there's an unwritten rule, and none of us are angels, but for whatever reason. And I love it. In college basketball, if a guy gives a verbal commitment, everybody backs off for the most part. I mean, it's a verbal commitment. Even if a guy does it in his junior year, it's done. And in football, a verbal commitment, guys make verbal commitments, and then they take 3 visits.
You're right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no,
and it's accepted. It's accepted.
You're right, and it's the cost of doing business. All the recruiting coordinators I know in college football make the analogy to reservations. It's like a kid will call and make a reservation at a restaurant, but they just want to see if they can get a table at a better spot. And then if they do, then they split. It's chaos.
See, that never happens in basketball. The only in basketball, let's say if a guy gives a verbal commitment in his junior year, like everybody backs off. And all right, they've got him. That's where the guy wants to be, and if that's where he's chosen, all right, good. Then we go on to the next guy. The only way it ever changes in men's basketball is, let's say, at the end of that player's junior year in high school, the coach that he committed to either leaves or gets fired.
Right.
Then he might open up his recruiting again, but even still, a lot of those guys sometimes stay or go where that coach goes. But rarely, a college coach would not take an official visit from a kid that had verbally committed somewhere else, a basketball coach. They wouldn't do it. I think it says a lot about, again, I'm not saying we're angels, but
right.
I think it says a lot about college basketball coaches that they wouldn't do it.
So far today, Bill Self wants to talk about the Super Bowl, and Jay Wright wants to talk about National Signing Day in college football. Jay Wright from Nova is my guest, and I'm looking at your guys' schedule, and you guys have really only had one. It's February, and you've really only had one night where you haven't played really well, and Georgetown got you. Other than that, you not only have been winning, Coach, you've been winning comfortably. What do you attribute the fact that you've had such consistent effort out of your guys to?
Experience, Now, I could argue that the Georgetown game, we didn't play well. You're right, and we did not play poorly against Seton Hall, which was our other loss. You're right. But there's been some games we've won that I think we played great. But we have experience. We have 2 senior starters in Javon Kingston and Darren Hilliard that have started since they were freshmen, and then we have 2 juniors in Daniel Chefu and Ryen Archidiakono that have started since they were freshmen. So that doesn't happen a lot in college basketball. We're very fortunate. I'm trying to bleed this for every day I can get out of it. When you got these experienced guys, you probably won't get this again.
Yeah, no, I was looking at your roster and obviously watching you over the years. I'm just thinking what a real benefit that is. And it's interesting, Coach, because there's a perception that if you don't bounce to the league after a year or 2, it means you're not any good. And I would totally disagree with that. And not shockingly, I'd give you a Maryland example. A guy like Gravis Vasquez, he stays 4 years. By his last year, he's ACC Player of the Year, and he's now made it in the league. Is it hard to convince guys that you can actually benefit by having a 4-year experience?
Yeah, it's one of the things that's sad about our I just pontificated on what a great state college basketball is in, and I'm going to tell you one of the things that's really sad is these kids get labeled, if you stay 2 years in college or 3 years in college, that you're a failure.
Exactly.
when actually, if you're in college 3 years, you're at all these schools are great schools. You're at a great school. You're getting educated. You're in a great environment. You're learning how to play the game. You're growing emotionally. You're growing as a basketball player. You're going to get your college degree. You're going to have a great opportunity to play professionally, whether it's NBA or Europe. You're really in a great place. But these kids get labeled on the street and, as failures. And it's really difficult for these kids to deal with. It's something that we try to talk with them about all the time because we know it's not them. It's everyone around them. They're actually enjoying themselves in college. They like their team. They like playing. They know they're getting better as a man, as a student, and as a player. But everyone around them on the street is telling them, "Oh, man, you're a bum. You should be in the league." It's really difficult for these guys.
Yeah, I can't stand that part of it. Jay Wright from Nova is our guest. Year 2 in a new league, there's enough familiarity that I'm sure some of it feels familiar. Does it feel more like, okay, this is our league, this is who's in it this year?
Yeah, man, great point. It is starting to get that way. Like I noticed this year we played Butler on New Year's Eve, and every game we play here on campus is sold out. But I just sensed, like, man, this is crazy for tickets. Like, we squeeze people in anyway, but this was insane. And I think people at Villanova who are really basketball people, if you maybe look at SEC school or Big Ten schools, like they're football schools, and Villanova is all basketball. Villanova fans follow college basketball. They follow Butler. They love their brand. They love when Butler comes here to watch them as much as they do watch us. And we're starting to see these rivalries. Like Creighton hammered us twice last year, and they're kind of a young team this year. But when they came in, we had a whiteout, and everybody was all fired up because this was a team that crushed us twice last year. And I'm seeing these new rivalries, and of course, when we play St. John's, we'll play Georgetown Saturday. It'll be sold out at the Wells Fargo Center, 20,000. It's always been that way. But the new rivalries are really cool.
I was lauding that you're one of the only guys I can think of whose wardrobe I would even acknowledge could be on par with mine. How many suits?
I think you're edgier than me, man, which I'm jealous of.
Well, because you can't. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't wear like a red tie to a game, can you?
No, I went almost like a little last night, but it's not the colors. Like I can't do like I used to when I was younger. I can't do the real Euro tight. You ever see Jerome Allen from Penn?
Sure.
You ever see what he wears?
Yeah.
Check him out sometime. He wears great stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's like straight from Italy. It's awesome. It's awesome. I can't do that anymore. I got to be a little bit more conservative.
How many? Seriously, like if your closet, how many deep?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Yes,
man.
you can. How many?
Tell you. Come on, man. I work for people that pay. They don't want to know about my suits, man. I can't tell you that.
That means it's a lot.
A lot.
How many ties? It's easily like triple figures ties. Is it 4? Please don't tell me you have 1,000 ties.
No. It's not even triple figure. It's not even triple figure.
It isn't?
No.
Well, you need to step your tie game up, Coach. Because I
give them away after year after year. I give them away because I got to keep them fresh. Got to go a little thinner this year. All that stuff, man.
Yeah, listen. You have no peer. Although I need to check out Jerome. If you're telling me,
yeah, you do.
High-end gear.
He looks. I swear, he looks like he just walked off the street in Milan or Paris. It's real tight, short, really cool.
Yeah, but you walked off a winner when you played him, so you're all right. Hey, listen, it's always fun to talk, man. Continued success. Let's catch up around the tournament. All right?
We'll do it, buddy.
SVP and Russillo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
SVP and Russillo.
So you're out there for the Grantland Basketball Hour, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sunday. We're taping it. We're getting it ahead of time because we're focusing almost entirely. I think the entire show is Simmons' trade value column that he's done every year for about 15 years. It's a ton of work. It's actually awesome. And you factor in not just the abilities of the players, contract age, current contract status, and the goal being the number one player is the one player you could never trade anyone for that one guy. And he goes 60 deep, and there's one here that I want to throw at you. Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay. including the fact that Love is a free agent, what you have to pay him, the fact that this other player has recently been drafted, and you still have contractual control over him the next 3 years, he ranks Alex Len as a more valuable trade asset than Kevin Love.
Boom! He a Terp. Dude, 7'2", physically skilled, gifted.
6 a game, but 6 important ones.
I do want to speak to Alex about getting out in transition, dribbling into people. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. That's amazing. Now, how do you justify? And obviously, nobody would be a bigger apologist for Alex Len than me. But on what grounds do you justify one being worth or more valuable than another?
Well, it's not just abilities, as we know in this league. You got to get out the abacus, dude.
I understand.
If you were Ryan McDonough and you're the GM of the Phoenix Suns, and David Griffin, who runs the Cavs, calls you up and goes, I want to send you Kevin Love for Alex Len, what do you do if you're McDonough?
Well, as you know better than I, it's never – how many trades in basketball?
They're never like that. But just say let's do Ryan's fantasy NBA world where you actually can make transactions that make sense and are easy.
No, well, none, because it's never just piece for piece. It's piece and dollars for piece and dollars. But if you're talking, I mean, look, Alex Len's not.
Let's just start over.
Yes, please.
Would you, if you could, if the rules allowed?
No.
All right.
No.
That's all we're trying to do.
No. I'm not an idiot. I mean, hold on.
So it's Simmons? Are you saying Simmons is an idiot?
If he's going to trade Alex Len for Love, yeah, he's nuts. How do you justify it?
Well, that's my role on the show. I have a few that I've noted. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want him to arm his defense against me. But hey, look, the guy ranks 60 of them. Clearly, there are going to be ones that you go, I don't know about that. But there's no one that spends more time on a trade machine than Simmons. It's like playing Final Fantasy back in the day, and you start it up, and it's like you've played 120 hours, and you go, wow, I'm a loser.
Outsider Mike's ears perked up at that.
7.
Knowing head nod.
10.
How many have you played?
They're amateur hours.
We already talked about that. That one dude went over to where was that? It was somewhere in Asia. Some guy went in some boutique and played video games until he keeled over.
Yeah, it was like on a 3-day bender, 2-day bender, something like that.
Yeah,
he had to be on some kind of sake though, right?
Something bad happened because you don't wind up dead just for playing video games.
Go in those internet cafes out there. You don't know if you're coming out.
It's SVP and Russillo featuring Outsider Mike here. So your role is to just debunk or explain the relative merits of these things?
There'll be some. There's a lot that I agree with. A lot of work is put into this every year, but there's a few that I disagree. One of the point guard rankings I don't love. He's got a theory on one of the major guys in the league right now, name-wise, that I'm not quite ready to give up on yet.
Okay.
So, we'll see. But, yeah, L.A. a couple days. We'll be on the show with you again tomorrow. Do you want me to say hi to anybody out here while I'm out here?
I just want you to ask Bill if he really thinks that at the end of the game when Belichick didn't call a timeout that it was some kind of he had a crystal ball and just knew if he didn't that they'd get a pick out of it. Because the implication at the end game not calling a timeout, it's okay to say a great coach and Belichick is one of the greatest. Just the idea that they didn't call a timeout was flawed. And had Seattle scored, Brady would have had no time to score. So it's not a matter of who was on the field and seeing this, and they were all chaotic. It doesn't make sense at all.
I'll check with him on that one.
I'm sure he doesn't care what I think. I don't know.
Text.
That's fine. That's fine.
Are you here on Thursday, 4 days removed from? Are you still thinking it's the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of sports?
No, New England won. They had a parade. Gronk did fireball shots, and everybody's happy. I just think
I'm talking about the pass play.
Not
the timeout.
It was awful. It was just awful. Got to run it, and New England needed to call a timeout, but they did. But had they put it this way, we talked to Bill Self earlier, all right, and we'll bring you that interview from the Kansas head coach. And before the interview even started, he's Scotty boy. How long did we talk for 8 minutes about the end of the game? And here's a great basketball coach who was just fascinated by all of the machinations on both sides. He wasn't just ripping Belichick. He wasn't just ripping Carroll. He wasn't ripping him as much as he was just trying to wrap his head around what happened. So, yeah, it's Thursday, and I'm still doing it.
I feel like the public has eased off. It's the worst play call in the history of.
That's because it's not Monday, you know. On Monday, it was the thing we just saw recently. By now, we've seen all kinds of new stuff.
I'm telling you, that Monday's a dangerous day for the opinion people.
Not a
you can't start the show going, it's the 5th worst thing I've ever seen.
Nope. Worst thing ever.
SVP and Russillo.
We've had an unbelievable guest list today from college basketball. Bill Self, Jay Wright, Mark Turgeon, and now from Virginia, Tony Bennett joins us. And, Coach, thanks for the time. It's great to catch up. Were you more agitated at the end of the Duke game or at halftime in Carolina after the worst charge call I've ever seen?
So they caught that on TV. I was hoping they didn't pan in too soon on that, but we were just fighting like crazy, and I thought we were getting some good momentum, and that stuff happens. But I was more discouraged after the Duke game and probably a little hotter at halftime of the Carolina game.
Yeah, I was watching the Duke game live, and I mean, you guys play such great defense, but Trent Dilfer, who obviously does football for us, has a line about a perfect pass. He says there's no defense for a perfect pass, and if guys are just going to make outrageous shots, then they're going to make them, and that's what I thought about the end of the Duke game. Did you share that feeling?
To a certain extent, yeah, there's a couple of them. And same thing I tell our guys, I can live. It's like, look, if we're beaten, it's one thing, but don't lose. And I can live with guys hitting a contested shot. We always say take your hat off as long as you're bothering it. And certainly the last one Tyus Jones hit was that. There were a couple closeouts where I said I'd give you guys about a C+ on that closeout, and if you want to win in those games, it's got to be closer to an A. So I thought there was a few things where we were a little off, but Duke made plays down the stretch, and that's what it comes down to, Scott. You know that sometimes you got to make plays. You know, defenses are set, and it comes down to that. So, again, I can live with some of that. I didn't like our first half against Duke, but I thought we really played the right way for the majority of the second half.
And it's really easy for me to do this because I have the benefit of watching on TV and you armchair quarterback or whatever. But as I watched those last couple of minutes, I felt like Justin Anderson, who's really become a very capable three-point shooter, was out there on the wing lurking. Is that a shot that you would have preferred to have gotten down the stretch? Or Toby was in the paint, had some looks. Were you content with the looks that you got in the end game there?
No, probably should have gotten some better ones. We missed a free throw and got an offensive rebound, but the one that I think you're referring to, Mike took, he did have Justin on the wing, and Justin's hit some big shots, and, that's hard to, see that, but no, maybe we could have gotten a better look, and, again, they had gone zone against us, and there's a few things I certainly, looking back, I maybe would have done a little differently, but you live and learn through those for sure, and what I liked is how our guys responded to that, going down to Chapel Hill. But absolutely, you're always looking for a quality shot, and you live with it if you miss it, but you want to get it and not get a tough shot at the end.
And you do rebound with an 11-point win against North Carolina as we visit with Tony Bennett. Louisville coming in this weekend. I don't want to spend all this time focused on the only game you've lost because you played so well all year. And I asked about Justin Anderson, a young man who's a great young man and has really, really ramped up his level of play this year. How's he done it, Tony?
Well, I think he really had a nice game against Carolina. He bounced back. First of all, he's now an upperclassman, so there's more maturity, but he's just become efficient. I love guys that we talk about playing continuous but being efficient, and his shot selection's been better for the most part. He's more consistent with his shot. He impacted the game. He had 7 assists against Carolina. He really let the game come. He was opportunistic with his drives and, got some rebounds. And when he's playing that steady, boy, with his strength and size and athleticism, it really makes a difference.
How's the year different as you all have lived in this rarefied air of the ranking? I mean, last year you played to a 1 seed, and now you've got an entire season of being viewed this way. Is there a certain level of confidence and belief that comes with being this good for this long?
I'm not sure. When you're in a league like the ACC, I think we're playing on Saturday against one of the best defensive teams that I've seen in a long time, and they're even the way they do it is tricky. But it's such a humbling league that, I always tell our guys, we're vulnerable. We know the fine line we walk, but that doesn't mean, I think when you know that almost gives you the ability and the confidence that you're talking about. All right, we know we can be beaten, but we're going to have to make people beat us because when we do it right and we're together, I said, I'll take you guys against almost anybody. And I think that's kind of the mindset we're developing, but never getting too far away from, we talk about the blue-collar mindset. That's got to be our identity because of just the way this program's being built and how our guys are.
How do you find guys that want to play defense? Where do you find them?
Well,
I think it's a great motivator. If if you don't play it, you're not going to play. But that's what even guys that want to play at the next level. That's the one thing that I think is a misnomer, and even my limited time there. You want to play at the next level. You better be able to spread out and slide and guard, because there's very few guys coming in like obviously LeBron and KD and all these players. Most guys got to come in and be very sound in their defense, but it's just validated when you have success, you win some games. All right, our guys say, I see what's going on. If we can make people earn, it becomes really effective for us. And you got to have guys, again, that are willing to sometimes give it themselves and be a little bit bigger part of the team than themselves. But it's not a natural or human nature to guard the way we think we have to be good. So it's always the job of the coach to sort of stay on that.
We now enter the nonsense portion of the interview with Tony Bennett from Virginia. I had Jay Wright on earlier. Fair to say that Jay Wright is a 1 seed when it comes to clothing, right?
Yeah, he's sharp.
Yeah, he's clean.
Sure.
Okay.
He wears that suit buttoned up. He looks clean. Yeah, all that. No, he's got it going on for sure.
Okay. Well, I asked him questions about suits and ties, and he didn't want to answer the suit question. But you have great ties always. It seems to me everyone has some shade of orange. Does every tie you have some form of that Virginia orange in it?
Well, here's the deal, Scott. So I was the head coach for 3 years at Washington State. I never wore a tie. I just wore a nice suit, I think, and a nice shirt underneath, and it was comfortable. It was good. Well, I came to Virginia, and it was recommended strongly by the AD. He said, it might be nice if you wore a tie. And actually, the one who made the final decision, I asked my wife, I said, what do you think? She said, well, it does look nicer. So then I went with it. So I started my tie game there, and a nice donor gave me a bunch of Air May. I think that's I don't know. You can tell me better than I can. Some ties, a bunch of orange. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, just don't call it Hermes. Yeah, don't you try not to say that in mixed company, but I mean, your tie game's exquisite. It's just every time I see it, I think it always seems to, which makes sense, because I said to Jay, you have to wear like a blue tie every night. He said, kind of. So it seems to me like you couldn't go out there and you would never wear a Carolina blue tie, obviously.
No, you know what? At home, I always wear orange. On the road, I'll sometimes wear orange, or I might mix it up and wear a navy, or just different colors. But home, I always have, since I've been here, said I'm going to wear some kind of orange. But road games, I might throw a darker tie or something different. So I have mixed that up.
All right. Well, we'll look for the orange tie Saturday night against. I told you it was a nonsense portion of the interview. We'll look forward to watching you in Louisville on Saturday night. Points will come at a premium there for sure. Congrats on the continued success. You guys are really playing fantastic basketball this year.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
SVP and Russillo.
Syracuse is not in the top 20 this year, and based on the way things have gone, they would not have been in the tournament, and they are imposing sanctions on themselves, and they will not participate in postseason tournament this year as a partial penalty. And I thought Gary Parrish from CBS did a really nice job. CBS Sports did a really nice job with this, and pointing out, Ryan, my angst with the current cycle of what we do when something goes wrong is you don't talk about it in the present, and then later you acknowledge past mistakes, but by then it's in the past, and now we've got our eye on the future, and so there's just always this really vague admission that doesn't ever handle anything. And for Syracuse to say, well, we won't be in the tournament this year, well, you weren't going to be in the tournament anyway. I really like Boeheim. I just think that this falls short on so many levels.
I like him even more now. This is brilliant. Everybody gets ripped for everything they do now. They're out of the ACC tournament. I mean, at least they did something. So I know they're getting crushed for this, and that's the line. Oh, wow, great. But I mean, at least they did something, right? I mean, they could have just said, maybe we can just keep going here. I don't know. I mean,
I think honestly, but when you do this though, Ryan, I think what you're doing is you're trying to do you're trying to do something that's this magnanimous gesture. Okay, well we're going to police ourselves here. We'll take care of this, and then you sort of put your hands in your pocket, look at the ground, and whistle and walk away, and hope that that's the beginning and the end of it. But when you say past mistakes occurred, my issue is this is always, what were they, and is it okay to impose your own sanctions? If you're not going to get a date to the prom, that's like saying, I won't go to the prom. Well, you weren't going to the prom, man. So that's not your punishment. We have to figure out something else that is an actual punishment because you weren't going anyway, barring some preposterous run here at the end of the year. And the NCAA, I imagine, is going to want to know, well, wait, what are the past mistakes?
I'm sure they already talked to the NCAA to get an understanding of where they're at with this. But here's what happens. Everybody goes, oh, this is a joke. You're punishing the current player. Come up with something else. Come up with something else that makes any sense. Like, how should the punishment be handled? Come up with a new plan, a new idea. I'm all ears. Everyone complains. No one comes up with any solutions ever when it comes to the NCAA and trying to figure out how to, I would say, fairly punish these programs that get themselves into trouble.
Well, the common denominator here, as Parrish points out in his article on CBSSports.com, and I'll quote, Jim Boeheim had for years, literally for years, been dismissive of anybody suggesting the investigation might lead to something significant, the implication being the Hall of Famer cared no more about the NCAA than he did about the coat he tossed at Cameron Indoor last season. So the similarity is that you, and this is what bothers me. I understand what you're saying. Come up with a better idea. Well, it's smart. Listen, it's genius if it works. You know, just deny, later admit something in the past happened, and just hope that this will suffice. But it's just crisis management 101. Deny, be dismissive of any accusation. Then later, when you say, yeah, some stuff happened, but that was then. I mean, it's just you conveniently really never deal with any consequence. And if that's all right, if the NCAA thinks that that's all right, then I guess that'll be all right. Braun obviously had to deal with something more than that.
I say we invent a time machine. We go back. We find out which players. You know, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the solution is. Yeah, you can kill him. You can definitely crush him. Hey, we banned ourselves from something we're not going to be a part of anyway, and that's the punchline. But they've been doing this a long time, and you're always going to end up punishing. I'm just saying.
They being who? The NCAA?
College athletics,
okay.
Not specific to Syracuse. They've been getting in trouble. The NCAA has been trying to figure out how to fairly punish everybody. It seems to be made up every single time. Everybody gets mad. Rinse, repeat. I mean, that's just – I don't know, man. I've almost got nothing left on this because it's never a different story.
It is the script, and I have to own the fact that I like the guy a lot, and I don't like when this is how things are handled. And again, it seems to suffice, and I suppose that's just how you play things.
SVP and Russillo.
If you want to do the thing, I'll just answer your questions. You don't need to play it. I mean, because it was already a no-hitter. Did you see Into the Wild? This is Gus. I did. Did American Sniper leave you feeling the same way when it ended? Heavy ending. Into the Wild was good, really good. The thing about Into the Wild is like the guy just went out and got on a bus and decided he was leaving. I don't know. I mean, it's different. No, different feelings. Heavy, but different. What does Outsider Mike do besides pick the music and be awesome? Play video games.
Yeah.
Eat Hungry Man. By the way, when's Russillo eating a Hungry Man?
You're going to have to get on him for that because I've got no pull with it.
We're going to make that happen when he comes back. I think he's just hoping that we'll forget since we've shown, collectively we've shown as a show that we have an amazing capacity to forget, but we're not going to forget that. Patrick asks a really good question. Who would win a show staff 1 mile race? I couldn't run a mile. Outsider Mike's lungs would.
Yeah, you can't have Rob involved.
No, Rob's a track guy. Yeah. Track guys don't count. It'd have to be Russillo,
That's
right?
Not fair. Well, who would go the furthest before collapsing?
That's a better question. Which I have no idea. Actually, that'd be fascinating to see. It's not you because you got smokers on.
Shot. Yeah.
It's not me. I hate running. It's not Steve either. Again, it's Russillo.
SVP and Russillo.